I wanted the deck building to be the thing that's focused on. Like that to me is the most fun part of card games. It's the creative expression when you build your own deck. And most card games discourage this actually. They just incentivize mimicry. And then when you're at the point of the game, when we're ready to fight a player, we match make you at that point against a player's build that had the same amount of steps as you. Yeah, we're gonna try to keep adding stuff to the pool. Like we're never gonna rotate stuff out or take things out of the Bazaar. We'll just keep adding monsters, adding cards, adding heroes, adding encounters. And as we add things, everything gets diluted. So everything gets more rare, more novel, more fun.
Hello everyone, my name is Łukasz and this is the Game Engineering Podcast. This time I'm joined by Reynad, former pro Hearthstone player and a founder, owner and CEO of Tempo Storm. We talk about the design of his upcoming card game The Bazaar. Enjoy! So maybe we can start a little bit with your background because you have unlikely transition from a pro player in Hearthstone into a CEO of Tempo Storm and now working on the Bazaar. So can you tell me a little bit about how did it happen? How did it happen?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but back when my stream took off, I mean, I was a streamer since like 2012. I got partnered streaming Magic: The Gathering originally, and then I saw Hearthstone a couple years later, uh, and I just fell in love with the game. It had a lot of similarities to Magic, which is my favorite game at the time, and um, it seemed like it was on an upward trend on Twitch, which was pretty rare. I hadn't seen a game come out and then go up in viewership before Hearthstone on Twitch. So yeah, I was playing it a lot, and one day they added a ranked mode. Everyone was just streaming Arena until then, and that's where I could sort of show off what I was good at. And my stream blew up really fast, but there wasn't really any money in streaming back then. You know, I would average like 10 to 20,000 concurrents, but I would make like the same amount of money as like a small dentist in over a year. But I was streaming like 12 hours a day, and so I had burned out on Magic before that too. So I knew streaming wasn't all upside. So I right when Hearthstone started taking off for me, I sort of wanted to use my audience to build something bigger than like a personal stream. So I founded Tempo just a couple months after my personal stream took off. Um, and yeah, we were an esports team originally. That was the business. So, I mean, I was the CEO of the company since like 2014. Founded it about 10 years ago. And yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing originally. Just sort of did the esports thing because it's what I understood. But yeah, after enough years of being in that business, I just realized you have to sort of own the game to make money on esports. So um, yeah, I just started working on that. It was a bootstrapped company. It was just like a startup for 5 years. But then when we decided to make a game, I had to raise money for the first time. So that was, we got like institutional capital. It became more serious. Gradually turned into a real company. But yeah, it was just a slow process over a decade. Basically, I started this company right away when streaming took off, but then it turned into first an esports team, then like a media company. We were doing a lot of production and selling shows to Twitch and brands and stuff. Um, and then yeah, eventually just wanted to make the game. I thought it was the best business to be in, the one I was most excited about. So um, yeah, it's a completely different company now than it used to be. Different people, we're mostly just a game studio now. Everyone here is focused on software development in one way or another.
How big is
But
the team right now?
for today, we're at about 85 people full time. At our peak, we'll be at about 99. But yeah, we'll never go above that.
Okay. And for how long the Bazaar is in development?
Bazaar's been in development for about 6 years now, I'd say. Yeah, that sounds about right. We're
Okay.
paper prototypes in 2018 were kind of the start of it.
Yeah. Before we dive into more like design of Bazaar, can you tell me like why have you felt compelled to make the game? Was it out of like frustration from Hearthstone scene, or was it more like you wanted to reach for something bigger?
There were a bunch of reasons I wanted to make the game. It was, personal and professional. I mean, there were professional reasons. It was just, I came from the esports side of the business, and like in sports, nobody owns basketball or soccer, so you can build a big business on top of soccer, but you can't do the same thing in esports, because if you ever build a big business on top of like League of Legends or whatever, Riot can and will take all your money. And so I I wanted to own the game if I was going to continue doing esports stuff. That was part of it on the business side. We are doing a lot of game marketing, so I felt like we understood distribution for games. So that those are like the professional reasons, I guess. The personal reasons are, I just always wanted to make a game. My whole life, I said I would do it. I have actually shipped games before. When I was like 13 and 14, I like self-coded and released a bunch of games, like small things, like castle defense things and like Fruit Ninja type things. People could probably still find them online, but um, yeah, I don't know. I felt like I had been a CEO long enough that I knew how to like run a company after enough years. And that, a lot of times I think you'll have like great game developers, but they haven't done that before. And so that's kind of the, the hard part. I felt like I could run a company. So I don't know. I felt like the ingredients were there to build something of higher scope. I had enough hours in card games that I felt like I kind of knew where the genre wanted to go. When we started making this game, it was the first time a lot of people had heard of Deck Builder. It was before Slay the Spire had come out, and like a few months after we were doing the paper prototypes on stream, Slay the Spire came out, and suddenly everyone knew what a Deck Builder was. And then like Auto Chess took over soon after that. First with the Hearthstone pros moving over to the Dota mod, and so we felt like we were sort of going in the right trajectory with what the game wanted to be the whole way. But yeah, that's what I want to do. I've always wanted to make a game. I think it's my favorite creative medium. I think everyone should do some creative work. And games are interactive, which is what I really like about them as a creative medium. That's what I liked about streaming too. It was interactive media, unlike a YouTube video. Um, but yeah, that's kind of why it started. But yeah, I knew it'd be a big project and it'd be hard to see through. So we did some things at the onset, like crowdfunding and stuff like that, to sort of make it impossible to quit. So yeah, it eventually shipped. And
Have you have you did sort of like a market analysis at some point whether there will be players for this type of game? Because as I understand it, you kind of did like this design that was like unknown at this point. If we think of like Slay the Spire came out, now people know deck builders, but they don't have this kind of structure in mind that you have a runs and then you have like a build you build a deck and then these things like at some point you start over and things like that. So have you run some sort of market analysis beforehand?
no, I mean, yes and no. Like the market analysis was like for one person, right? I was just trying to make a game that I wanted to play, and so I would play it, and it wouldn't be that fun, and we'd change some stuff, and then I'd play it, and it wouldn't be that fun, and change some stuff, and just sort of did that for a very long time. Just trying to make a game for one person, not for a market. Um, but I think the older I get, the lower and lower my opinion becomes of market analysis and data and really any non-holistic thinking. It's really easy to draw a box and to make everything perfect inside of that box and to think you're a genius inside of that box. But that box is only in your head. You have to take the totality of the thing into account. And so like I used to build stuff like a house, like brick by brick, and you perfectly measure everything. And now my creative process is more like soup. And it's like you add stuff, you taste all of it, and then you add more stuff, and nothing gets missed that way in my experience. So So yeah, any of like the data analysis stuff, any of the market analysis, it's sort of like blinding yourself to everything but a cross section of what you're looking at. And I just, I don't know. I see less and less value of that over time. It's like,
Okay. So, can you tell me what have you found that was working throughout the development? Because you changed a lot with the design over the years. So, what have you found that like sticked with you and worked?
yeah, it was a lot of like little things, like making the game is sort of the culmination of like hundreds of thousands of like design decisions that had to get made. And so we'd keep like making some stuff and then trying it and then making some more stuff. And most of the time, or a lot of the time, the new thing doesn't really make it better. And so you just kind of keep you test a bunch of decisions and you keep the ones that are good, basically the ones that played out in a good way. They made the game more fun. And you just try to keep the good, get rid of the bad, and it's just iterative. It wasn't like one or two things that stuck out. I mean, we always wanted it to be a drafting game. That to me was kind of the heart of it the whole way through. Like, I wanted a PvP card-based strategy game, but I didn't want. I wanted the deck building to be the thing that's focused on. Like, that to me is the most fun part of card games. It's the creative expression when you build your own deck. And most card games discourage this, actually. They just incentivize mimicry. You just have a new expansion, and then, people copy the same two decks on the internet, and then people just keep copying them forever. Nobody makes new stuff. And so drafting games don't have this problem. So that was always the core of the game. And that part always felt good. That was the part we kept. Um, just like a game that's more replayable, where you don't commit to a strategy before the game starts. That was the main problem we were trying to solve. So that part always felt good, and we kept that. But everything else pretty much changed along the way. I knew that the lore and the atmosphere part was really important, to me, and for the product to be good, like for the game to be good. And so we put a lot of focus on that. I felt like the world building was always good, and from day one, that was a big focus. So that's just been iteratively improving for years and years and years. So yeah, I guess some of the design stuff along the way, the good stuff stuck around as soon as we discovered it. And then or like asynchronous. There were no asynchronous games, and there were no asynchronous drafting games that match made that way when we were making our game. That was a feature. As soon as we found it, we kept it like the whole way through. So yeah, that kind of stuff stayed. The characters stayed that we were happy with, but not everything stayed. Some of them got reworks, some of them got like improvements, touch ups. So yeah, the whole thing was just trial and error, and you sort of keep the good stuff, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the asynchronous matchmaking, can you break down a little bit how this works so that people have a better idea? I myself, I feel like I understand it, but I'm not sure. So, because I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
maybe like not normal matchmaking would be that like you're in a queue and you wait for your opponent to come in, right? And this is something different.
yeah, every drafting game at the time is mostly just auto battlers. Like, we came up with this feature like 4 years ago or so. I showed it on YouTube. Somebody could find the video, but every auto battler was real time, and it was an 8-person lobby that you committed to for like 45 minutes. And so for our game for the longest time was 1 versus 1, more like Hearthstone matchmaking. It wasn't 8 players in a lobby. It was just 2 people in a lobby. And eventually we changed the design of the game to be a drafting game, and we had to answer the question, how many people are playing against each other? Because the game could have worked in all sorts of ways. We could have done a lobby, we could have done 2 people, we could have done infinite people, and I asked myself what the limits are and like how many people we can have. I'm just trying to define the range. And I was like, why not infinite? And what does an infinite player lobby look like? And then so that's where the asynchronous thing came from. We were thinking about it like an infinite player lobby instead of 8 people. And that's what we called it. It was an infinite player lobby system. But really all it is like the fastest way to summarize it is everyone plays at their own speed, like in Slay the Spire. It's like an asynchronous game. And then when you're at the point of the game, when we're ready to fight a player, we match make you at that point against a player's build that had the same amount of steps as you in the draft. So like if you've had 12 decisions, you'll fight against someone else that's done 12 decisions. And as soon as you fight somebody, you replace them in the queue, like their ghost. So no ghost should be getting reused, more than once. And so it's a very like random system, people could say, because you're fighting against anyone at any rank. Like we're not doing skill-based matchmaking or anything like that. If somebody's on day 10, they're fighting somebody else from day 10, and only one time. So yeah, that's kind of the nature of the system. It got rid of some of the real-time feeling from a real-time lobby, so it's not all upside, but it's mostly upside because the benefits heavily outweigh the cons. Like suddenly nobody's rushed. Everyone can have infinite time to read stuff. You can do more of this. You just have time to like soak in the atmosphere. It's faster sometimes, like when you don't have to wait on the rest of the lobby to finish. You can just keep going. So it just had a lot of advantages for pacing, and most of the multiplayer-ness of auto battlers is, if people are really honest about it, non-existent. They're single-player games pretending to be multiplayer, unless there's like a co-op mode or whatever. If you're playing like the default mode, you're really focused on your build, not the other people. And so it didn't feel like much of a cost to lose that in exchange for all these big benefits, especially when you think about like playing the game on a phone or when you have to make like a bunch of inputs super fast. I think that'll really pay off in the long run. It doesn't mean that'll be our only mode ever. I'd love to have like a single player mode that's, no matchmaking, or like maybe an even more competitive mode where you can play with your friends or other people in real time potentially. We'll explore stuff like that, but this felt like a good balance to start with. Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the strategy aspect, how much do you want to push it? Because like on one hand you have the simplicity, right? And simplicity in terms of cards, like for example, attack types, damage types, poisonous, burn, stuff like that. Uh, on the other hand, you have like the more you add, the more strategy comes into play and you can like figure out different combinations. So where between like simplicity and strategy you want to end up with?
Yeah, we try not to think of it like a trade-off. I think the game will be strategic kind of in any form, but yeah, we're gonna try to keep adding stuff to the pool. Like we're never gonna rotate stuff out or take things out of the bazaar. We'll just keep adding monsters, adding cards, adding heroes, adding encounters. And as we add things, everything gets diluted. So everything gets more rare, more novel, more fun, harder to recreate, like force. So eventually the pool is big enough that you have to just come up with a build on the fly instead of like having a plan going into it all the time. And I think the game gets more fun once we hit that threshold of content. It's getting closer, every month, but it's not quite there yet. So sorry, I lost your question. You asked something.
So I asked about like the trade-off between simplicity and strategy. You said like it's not a trade-off, but like in terms of simplicity versus difficulty, then like where would you like for it to
Yeah,
end up?
so we don't want. It's hard to make like one game mode cater to every type of player. I think if we try doing that, we'll cater to no one. And so what's in the game right now is a PvP mode. It's like a more competitive mode. This was like more replayable and faster to put out in the world. So this will be like where the competitive players go. But I don't think the current mode of the game is like that, welcoming to new players. And that's going to be what PvE is more for. I think most players will start in the single player version of the game, and most of them will probably stay there, except for the ones that want the more competitive PvP, ranks, chests, that kind of thing. So So that's kind of the. I hope we can cater to both types of players. Ones that want a really simple experience, they'll play the single player mode, and then the ones that want more like the PvP strategy itch to get scratched, they'll play PvP, or other modes we have. Yeah.
Okay. For the rank mode and generally competitive play, do you have any things to say about how it would look like? For example, an improved version from what I know, for example, from Hearthstone. So you have like a ranking, you have, let's say, in Hearthstone at least, you have the legend, right? You can get there, then you see like point wise where are you at, and you can be the first. And at some point, there's a reset, and the ranking is, let's say, you start, let's say, from scratch, and then you go back up. Do you think this is a good general strategy for the kind of ranked systems, or you have some other plans?
I do think it's pretty good. Yeah, our system's going to be pretty similar to that. It hasn't been working quite right at Legend right now in the game. We're going to get that fixed. I think in the next patch, actually, like probably on the 5th or around then. But it'll be interesting to see who's actually good at the game once we have like a real ranked system at Legend. I'm curious if how much it changes. But yeah, I actually think Hearthstone's design is pretty good for the ranked mode. If you actually list out all the goals that you want from a ranked system, it's hard to do a lot better. I like how they designed it more than like MOBAs or other types of games. Like going up to Legend is really good because they have discrete steps. You know how many wins you need to hit the next level. If all you show is an MMR number, that's more nebulous. So I like that clarity. And then once you're in Legend, it just ranks everyone among other Legend players, which I think is a good way to do it. So everyone has, room to climb forever, basically. It's always going to reward time invested, maybe a little more than we'd like, but that's just the nature of having any MMR system. So yeah, overall, I think they had a pretty good system for a ranked mode, and that's how ours is going to work too for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Regarding different heroes slash characters, they influence a lot about the runs, right? Currently, there is one available. How do you see, first of all, like how much should the characters cards in change the what you can see and do during a run? Like, should it be like 10% on top of the general cards that are there, or should it be like 90% that you need to adapt to the character you're playing with? And then maybe like more consumer oriented, like when they will be released and things like that.
Yeah, those are good questions. So when you pick a hero, we want it to determine most of the cards that show up for you. Like most of the items that you're going to see in a run are going to be for your hero. But there's always that question of how much do you introduce items from the neutral pool or from other heroes? Like how easy is it to get stuff from outside your hero? If we make it too easy, then we kind of eliminate all the hero identity completely. Like all the heroes feel the same because they're all just drafting from everything. Whereas if you restrict it, you kind of have more defined hero experiences, hero roles. So I think it's in a pretty good spot right now overall. I think we'll introduce some more ways to like get stuff from outside of your hero. But in general, most of your items, like if you have a full board, at least half of it on most runs would be from your hero at the end of a game. So it depends. Sometimes you get a giant cool item from a monster or something like that. But yeah, we don't want to make it too easy to get stuff from outside your hero. Otherwise, the heroes kind of lose their purpose.
Okay. Regarding the heroes
Oh,
coming,
sorry.
uh,
The you had a second question too.
yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
I'm interrupting probably. Right?
No, no, this is, I wanted to ask the second one again. So like when the heroes slash characters will be coming out.
Yeah. So the next one is going to be Mac. He comes out with season 1, so that'll be in the near future. Like we're going to go into open beta at some point in the near future here, and then open beta will last like a month, and then after that it'll be season 1, which will be Mac, the fourth hero. And then our goal for releasing heroes is to do 3 to 4 of them per year. They're quite a lot of new content. They're a lot of work. It's 100 new cards plus. We're going to be releasing expansions for heroes. Plus, we have unique encounters and monsters for that hero every time. So there's just a lot of work that has to get done. We also don't just want to keep reusing the basic mechanics we have in the game now. Like we're introducing new mechanical things to the game with every hero. And so yeah, they're a lot of work. They're probably our biggest content releases. But yeah, we want to do like 3 or 4 of them per year.
Okay. If you want to add, generally speaking, add more cards and not remove them, won't you run into some issues regarding like combos that are difficult to like play against, or connections that people can do, like some mechanics together will be broken, things like that?
Yeah, but they're equally diluted as well. So they're also less likely to happen as you add stuff. And so
Yeah.
like yeah, those combos will exist and it'll be exciting moments when you get them. But they're also the problems become harder to reproduce the more the pool grows.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What will be what is like free and what is gonna be paid in the bazaar?
Well, in theory, all the content is free because you can earn the gems for free, and then the gems can buy all the content, is the idea. Um, but if all we sold was skins, we just couldn't support a studio uh, of this size. So the production value of the game would have to go down a lot. It would have to be a much smaller studio if all we sold was skins. So, we're gonna have like things people can pay for. We're gonna have a subscription system. We're gonna have a prize pass, is what we call it, just like a rewards track, a free rewards track and a paid one. Mostly it's cosmetic, but there is some content that you can get access to a little earlier um, inside of that. So, but yeah, our goal is to not sell the content as much as possible, if that makes sense. Like it's a challenge. Like you want to basically line up the incentives of the players and the studio, is the way I think about it. Because like the studio wants to make this high effort, high quality content all the time. Um, but if we always give it away for free, there's only so long you can do that. And so we want to be making the stuff that the players are most excited about. But we also want to make money from it in some way. And so, one of the things with the Bazaar is we want this to be a global free to play game for every region. So we can't. It's hard to like price something for a global market where it might make sense in America, but not in most countries to price things at certain ranges. And so yeah, the way we think about it is everyone can earn everything free to play, and that's always going to be like a core tenet of the game. If people just can't or won't spend money, they should still get all the cards and everything with time. But there will be stuff to spend dollars on outside of cosmetics. Maybe it's like earlier access to content. Maybe it's a subscription mode with you get more chests, more benefits, more rewards. Um, so yeah, we're gonna experiment with a few different things, and I'm confident that whatever we put a price tag on, people will complain about. So we're not too worried about feedback there.
So this ties into my question regarding player feedback from the closed beta. What is the currently feedback from players?
It's pretty positive overall. Yeah, I'd say the feedback's been great. It's been nice to see so many people liking the game. There's been like I don't know. I think a big part of the human condition is refusing to take accountability for yourself in any way. And so it's like it's all about externalizing blame in all things. This is why we love victimhood. It's why we love everything irrational. And so like you play a strategy game where it's like a test of your decision making, but then you lose. And so what are you going to do? Are you going to blame yourself? It's inhuman. And so something's wrong with the game. And then that ends up being a lot of the feedback I end up reading is like, I lost and it's the game's fault and here's why, And so people push for things like skill-based matchmaking and people want the dopamine of winning without doing the work of improving. I feel like that's where some of the balance feedback comes from, for example. So yeah, I don't know. I listened to a bunch of other folks that ran competitive card games for a long time. Like there's a guy that ran Magic's competitive scene for 20 years. He basically said the best it ever gets is they're complaining about balance. He said that that's the best case scenario, which made a ton of sense to me. Because balance is in the eye of the beholder, and it's like never gonna be solved because of that. And so yeah, so basically, yeah, I'd say overall I felt pretty good about the feedback. It's been overall very positive, and the stuff that's been negative is like as good as you can do. So yeah, I'm not unhappy with it.
Okay. Are there any changes to the design that you'd like to introduce before open beta and next stages?
Definitely some small things here and there. The further out it is, the bigger the feature that can come in will be. I mean, we have like some big plans for game systems and modes, and uh, nothing I can really leak right now before open beta. The big thing missing before open beta is all the monetization systems. Like we could afford to release the game in its current state because everyone playing or half the people playing had to buy the founders pack to get in. But if we're going to make that go away and the whole game is free, we need some of the monetization systems to at least be in there, which right now they aren't. And so we need to get the prize pass in. We need to get like rewards tracks, those kinds of things. So that's achievements. So that's all coming in before open beta. As soon as it's ready, that's when we can go into open beta. And then yeah, right after that, we're going like seasonal. So we're doing like a one season, 1 month, full live ops. So people should see stuff coming in pretty fast, pretty often. We'll do a ladder reset every month. So everything will fall into like a 1 month cadence once the open beta is closed. So that's kind of what we're working towards right now. But yeah, short term, it's mostly monetization stuff. And in terms of design of the game, it's like introducing some encounters, some monsters, some balance stuff, pretty small things. We want to make sure Mac is in a good spot, so a lot of our focus is on him as well between now and season 1. So yeah, that's kind of where our focus is right now.
How do you how do you test this? How do you balance? Uh, so if you have like a traditional like Magic, you kind of have this. You can see the cost of the card, you can see the power of the card, you can kind of estimate, right, and compare two cards together. How do you balance it when you have like dynamic runs and drafts full of different cards you can get? And then on top of that, lay like characters that they have different cards. And how do you balance Mac versus other characters? Like,
Yeah, I mean it's the soup thing, You put stuff in, you try it, you put more stuff in. Yeah, I don't know. People say it's easier to balance in games like Magic, but like, how's that working out for them? Are they free of balance complaints? Are all the cards equally good at all times? It's like they just kind of lean into like, yeah, some cards are worse, and that's intentional, and that's okay. That's kind of the property in our game as well, I guess. It's you get rid of the bad card because you find the good card, and that's intended. So for us, we have a bunch of heuristics, like with any game, on how to balance stuff. Like in Magic, like drawing a card is worth 1.5 mana or whatever, and you can do it that way. You can sort of add up all the effects that a card has and price them differently. And we have our math behind the scenes, but for how we want stuff to be balanced, but that's always changing too. Like in the patch that's going live today, we're changing the the balance on like bronze tier items for a bunch of them, and the scaling is less aggressive between tiers. That's like a pretty sweeping change that's going to take a while to complete, for example. But yeah, the way we balance, we play the game. We've been playing the game for enough years that the problems that come up tend to look the same way over and over. You know, in Magic, it's going to be like stuff that cheats mana or whatever. It's you're going to have the same kinds of culprits over and over when there is a problem. And so part of it is just experience. We've worked on the game long enough that like when a problem comes up from a new design, it's usually something we've seen before and we fixed it in some way before. But yeah, for the most part, this is an area where having a bunch of players has helped, because like now that the game is public, the metagame can get optimized way faster. And so we can basically see the impact of balance changes a lot sooner. We're gonna add a PTR mode for people soon too, so people can test the upcoming patch sooner, and we can get feedback on it sooner. So that'll help.
You mean
Um,
you mean like a preview? PTR? What do you mean?
yeah, like a separate server with
Okay.
upcoming patch, and people could play the new stuff ahead of time, basically before it's in the official game. Like a public test realm, or I forgot what it stands for, but something like that. But yeah, basically anyone should be able to sign up, jump in, play with like the new hero ahead of time, maybe, or something like that, and then give us feedback on it before it's live and in the game. So I think we want to lean on our community for a lot of that stuff too. I think that's there's just so much content in our game, and it's only going to keep growing. And so uh, there's only so much time that like a small design team has to get to stuff. So
How many designers are there on your team now?
3, yeah,
Okay.
including there's sorry 4. We just promoted a technical designer. Yeah, so we have 4 designers right now, including me.
Okay. How would the dream esports scene for Bazaar look like? You spent a lot of your time in esports world. Like, what would be the best kind of version of this dream esports scene for Bazaar?
Well, I would love it if the community, just people from the community, were hosting things regularly, and they took the initiative to do that, and then we'd support it, with prizing or coverage or however we can. But in my ideal world, it looks more like Smash Bros, esports, or like open Magic tournaments, like something more community driven. And I don't want it to look like the NFL or whatever, where it's fully centralized and we make a big league or anything like that. It would be better if everyone sort of ran stuff and then we supported it.
Okay. How is the community doing now?
No, they're good. I mean, it's a brand new game. They're streaming. They're having fun with it. They're talking about the game a lot. The engagement's been really good. So they've been active, but we don't really have like a way inside the game to let them play against each other yet. So a lot of the traditional matchmaking things don't work. And so at some point we'll have social features and ways for you to matchmake against specific people, which will make the tournament stuff easier to do. But yeah, I don't know. It might be the case we should talk to a couple people and encourage them to do it. And I don't know. To me, it's important that it's organic. That's the big thing. I don't want to like force a competitive scene right away.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I've run out of my questions. You've answered them quite fast. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for making the aggro warrior deck back in like, I don't know, 8 years ago. That was very
Happy
helpful.
to help. Happy to help. I play Hearthstone, so you don't have to. It's good. I'm glad I helped someone get to legend. But yeah, man, great questions. Yeah, if you ever want to do this again, let me know. I had
Okay.
fun.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Game Engineering Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow on Spotify and other podcasting platforms. See you in the next episode.